sublime. It's a very specific approach, you know, it's very powerful psychologically. So we've been talking about that, haven't we? And the actual qualities of Tara. And the Tibetans in particular love Tara. They really, she's one of their favorite practices, one of their favorite Buddhas, you know. And got a cold today, and I'm a bit sick today. Something's gone wrong with me. My face is all swollen and red. It's like I don't know what's happened, and I've got a cold. So I'm so sorry to, whatever. I'm sorry to look ugly for you. Well, I'm ugly anyway because I'm old and ugly. But to look ugly with a swollen face and my mouth is all swollen, so I can't talk properly and I can't eat properly, which is the biggest tragedy, of course, because I love my food. Anyway, I'll do my best.
Terrible.
And my croaky voice.
Like you got a facelift.
I can't smile either, it hurts. Okay, I'll do my best. No, it's like I've got, my lips are like I've gone to have, you know, swollen up, make them all looking like Diana Dawes, but she was in the 1950s. I don't know who to say now. Anyway, never mind. So let me look for this teaching I just downloaded about the 21 Taras. It's a very popular practice. They all chant it in the monasteries. And one years and years and years ago in the 80s, a person called Martin Wilson, he turned the English words into in a rhythmic way so that we can chant the same Tibetan tune. I don't know if that's the version we've got here, but we might find that and we might be able to all do it together before we finish today. Now I have to find practice and I can't find it. Just a moment. Where is it? Tara. I had it on my here we go. Commentary on the 21 Taras. So maybe we can have the picture, at least have the picture up. Get the picture up, Talia. I sent you the picture. Post that and we can all look at the picture. It's not a very big one, so we'll just get a rough idea. And I'll go through each of the 21 and I'll just read out this commentary. It's from it's a German monk called Venerable Fredor. He studied for years at Sarah J. And this is a commentary that he's put together based on a commentary by Geshe Dawa in Sydney years ago, and then also using a commentary of one of the earlier Dalai Lamas, I think. Now, but I want to see you all, but I can't do that. There's too many of you. What can I do? Nothing I can do. View options, view, wait on, what's this?
On the right-hand side, there will be view and gallery.
No, I understand, but I can only see about 4 of you. That's the trouble.
Yes, actually.
Gallery, view gallery.
I know, but it doesn't have it. It has standard side by side and side by side gallery. But I've got precisely 4. Yeah, but there's precisely 4 of you. That's all I can see.
And then you can click on the very right one on top and then enlarge the window. Then you can, now I see like 20, 18.
What? I've got 3 options. Standard. Let's look at standard. No, I see 4 of you. Then I got this one. I got 6 of you. So there's not many. I can't see many. I decided to extend it. Let me see if I can go down. Yeah, a few more, but not many. What a pity. I can't help it. Never mind. It's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. I know you're all there. So let's look at Tara. But I've got to read the commentary, but I can't get out of the way. It takes my whole screen, and now I can't see my document. How do I get the whole screen off? I want to be able to read my document.
Exit full screen.
Share screen, record,
exit full screen,
chat, participants.
Back up where the slide was.
Remove live, options, view options, fit to window, 100% remote, exit full screen.
Yeah.
All right, I understand, darling. It's okay. Now I can't see anybody at all, but never mind. I know you're there. Okay.
And then you gotta make it small, and then
So okay, all these Taras. This is a painting, but now it's got this ugly thing. Oh, here we go. This is a painting by Andy Weber, a German student of Lama Yeshe. Many years back in the late 70s, early 80s, he painted this. So okay, this booklet by Venerable Fedor. This is he's got a little publishing company. He calls it the Happy Monks Publications. He puts his little booklets out. He's great. So this This is homage to Aryatara, praised by way of her story. And then there's all these 21 different versions of Tara, some peaceful, some wrathful. They've all got their different jobs, okay? Basically, that's the way to think about it. There are all these different aspects of Tara, and they've all got their jobs. So I'll just read what he's got here. So this is a commentary on the 21 Taras given by Geshe Dawo. It was a Lama in Melbourne, Australia. It was in 2001. And the teaching was based on a commentary by a person called, and it was called an old commentary on a bouquet of upala flowers, captivating minds. And then it was later supplemented with passages from the first Dalai Lama's commentary on the 21 Taras called The Precious Garland. And there's other bits and pieces as well. Okay, so I'll just read. So, oh, I prostrate to the noble transcendent liberator. Homage to Aryatara. So I'm reading his commentary here. I know nothing. I can't say it from my own mind, so I'll tell you what he says. So there's the Sanskrit letter Om, which shows the object of prostration, is a combination of the letters A, U, and Ma, respectively signifying the Vajra body, Vajra speech, and Vajra mind of all the Buddhas. This is the letter Om. So which is the essence of Tara. And the word J, it's often she's referred to as, Jetsun, J. The word J means someone higher. And then Tsun, Jetsun, she's often referred to, who is pure. So she's known as Jetsun or Jetsun Ma, the female ending, okay? So now, so each of those words, he went through each of those words, never mind that. So the first line, and this is Tara. Oh, it doesn't say. Here she is. The first verse, homage, Tara, swift, heroic, eyes like lightning. Oh, yeah, this is the poetic one. We would chant it like this. This is how the Tibetans chant it. Homage, Tara, swift, heroic, eyes like lightning, instantaneous, sprung from opening stamens of the Lord of three worlds, tear-born lotus. That's the chanting by Martin Wilson. That's the first one. And then we'll look at what she's about. So I don't know where she's going to be. On the first seat on a moon disc. Must be over on the left there, on a moon disc, and she's red. Already this is confusing. I think I'm going to give up on this. It's too boring. It's really good for you to all read it, I think. I'll just get the essence. So this is swift, heroic Tara. She's is red, and she's got one face and two arms. And the qualities of all enlightened beings are equal. She is refuge. She's the liberator because she liberates sentient beings from their suffering. She is swift because her enlightened activities work especially fast. And she is the heroine because she has completely subdued all the delusions. Her wisdom eyes sees all the... She was born... Okay, it's too many things. Too many things. The next one, homage, she whose face combines 100 autumn moons at fullest, blazing with light rays resplendent as a 1,000-star collection. This next one, the extremely peaceful Tara. So she sits on a moon disc, is white like an autumn moon, and holds in the palm of her hand the mudra of bestowing sublime, something the sublime. She's white, radiant. I think it's too boring. I'm going to stop. I can't cope with all this. I think it's much better you all read it yourselves if you're interested. I think it's much better. I just don't think it's too many things, too many words, and it becomes too kind of intellectual in the end. And I can't say myself about each one. But each one is different. They've each got a function. Some are peaceful, some are wrathful, okay? The commentary is wonderful. So take away the picture again. And you're going to have to go back to boring old my words, I'm afraid. I can't talk about those things. But it's excellent if you'd like to read it. And it's really maybe at the end, we might be able to chant it together. That might be a good idea. We can do that perhaps. This is the bigger point that I'm pointing to here is all these different, I mean, there are countless, probably hundreds of thousands of these different Buddhas. And I forget exactly what we talked about each week. I mean, Kind Tali has given me a summary. But we can see very clearly that, as I said, it's all just psychology. Each one of these Buddhas is a manifestation of different qualities, either that we want to try and cultivate or that we want to purify. But there's two ways of thinking about these Buddhas, I mean, if we've been Christian, especially if you've been a Catholic, I mean, you know, you've got all those saints. You pray to our Lady and all the different versions and all the different versions of Joseph and all the different versions of Saint, all the different thousands of saints. You know, the Catholics love all those, and that was my background. Well, in one, you know, of course, they're not the same as God, but from the Buddhist perspective, it's like that. But they're all the same. They are all Buddha. They're all enlightened. They're all equal. They're all just different manifestations of enlightened qualities. So the thing is, you do have a relationship with them. You know, we talked about this last week when we talked about devotion and the relationship with the guru in the human form in front of us. But if you know, when we read that sweet song of praise, of longing to Tara by this young man who was 19 when he wrote it, that was to the Sambhogakaya. So in other words, the forms that we see in these statues, which look like fantasy, like ladies and, you know, with her lovely breasts and her crown, and she's meant to be green and it's made of light. You don't see you don't see your lama looking like that. Your lama might be a man. You don't see a green lady there, you know, because that's the Sambhogakaya aspect. It's the subtler aspect. It's the aspect in which the Buddha mind manifests in a subtle form that when you're an Arya Bodhisattva in your meditation, you can see directly. So obviously he was capable, because he was as a meditator, a yogi, he was able to commune directly with Tara. Lama Tsongkhapa is, you know, he was so profound, he was able to directly perceive Manjushri in the subtle light body. He had his teachings from Manjushri. So of course, this is where it sounds mystical to us, you know, green ladies and orange gentlemen and holding swords and God knows what. It really just does seem really peculiar to us to think that we take it seriously, you know. But this is the point. The more we study the teachings, and of course here we're describing the Bodhisattva teachings, these Buddhas don't manifest in the Hinayana aspect. You don't see these in the Hinayana teachings, you know. This is exclusively in the Bodhisattva path, and all of these are taken from the Tantrayana aspect of the Mahayana path. So, you know, in the beginning, some people, when they first meet the teachings, they love certain Buddhas. They love Vajrayana. They love Tara, you know. But as we develop, as more and more we study the teachings, the more and more it'll all make sense to us. We will hear it as something logical, as something actual, that Buddha minds, beings who have accomplished all these marvelous qualities, whose minds pervade the universe, whose minds exist. They can never not exist. Minds are beginningless and endless, but now they're perfected. Then out of compassion, these Buddhas manifest in different forms for the benefit of sentient beings. That's their job, you know. So that's what these deities are. Deity in Tantra is equivalent to the word Buddha. That's all. It's just used exclusively in Tantra, I think. So this is where, you know, like we talked last week, the business of faith and devotion. That's where these figures come in. You know, you can absolutely, I mean, we absolutely need, but the thing is, we need all aspects of it, you know. Sometimes people have a lot of faith in the Buddhas, like a lot of people, you know, I know in China, I'm not sure, but among Chinese especially, there's very strong devotion in Amitabha Buddha. And when you read, I mean, for me, it almost sounds like it's just the equivalent of God, it's the equivalent of Jesus. They want to go to Amitabha's Pure Land and get happy when they die. They want to go to heaven, basically. I'm not saying Chinese people particularly, but it's popular among Chinese people, I've heard. So that's fine, but it's not, you know, that's not enough. The Buddhist one, on the other hand, you've got all the scholarly approach. You've got people, especially in the West, really brilliantly educated scholars who teach in the universities, you know, who are professors of Buddhism, who know all the words. Or you've got the Geshis who study, especially the Geshis, 20, 30 years they've studied, or the Khenpos in the different traditions, like in the Kargyupas or something. They know all the teachings. So you've got these two aspects. And initially, it doesn't seem there's any much relationship. You've got all these green people and holy beings in subtle light bodies that you have faith in and pray to and say their mantras, which sounds like magical. And then you have this grounded on the earth logic and analysis of the philosophical approach. Well, this is the thing that's interesting. And I know for myself, when I first got involved in the teachings, I first met the lamas, when I wanted a spiritual path again, having been 10 years, I'd given up being a Catholic when I was about 19. And then I met the lamas. I wanted something spiritual again after many years of, you know, political activity, looking for a way to see the world pretty much. And then I stumbled into the, you know, Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe. Well, karma drove me there, but it felt like I stumbled into them. Then what I knew, I almost immediately, even though I had a lot of problem with it, a struggle trying to understand it all, I knew that it had the components that I wanted. My first month was a course with Lama Zopa, the teachings, the down-to-earth, grounded, philosophical teachings presented in the Lam Rim. No discussion much of deities or anything. And then the next month, I had a course, doing a retreat on Chenrezig, a particular wonderful practice. It's been published by Wisdom, a wonderful practice written by His Holiness when he was 19, a guru devotion practice. It's Chenrezig. It's called the inseparability of the guru and Chenrezig, basically. It's the sweetest sadhana, the sweetest practice. I knew nothing about all these things, but I know that was what I'd been looking for. I'd been looking for a path without these words. I didn't know I was looking in this way, where I could have all the nuts and bolts of a grounded philosophical viewpoint, a presentation of the universe, a world view, at the same time mixed with devotion. And that's what I found in Tibetan Buddhism. I know as a Catholic, and I was a girl, I was a girl, so I couldn't do much. I could be a nun, but wasn't much opportunity to study anything. Only if you're a man, you became a Jesuit, and the Jesuits are like the Gelugpas of the Catholics, but only the men could study that. So that was never available. I wanted that. I wanted a worldview, but I had the devotion part for sure, but I wanted both. And that's the thing. They're not contradictory at all. In fact, they're completely grounded together. When so in other words, faith, what is this word faith? We talked last week. Let's look at the word faith. We have a very strong assumption about faith coming from our creator religions, that because you can't prove that God is true, that God is right, you can't prove that God is right. If you can prove that God is right, that means you've become God, logically, and you can't say that. That's an impossibility. So faith is usually considered to be blind faith, and that's considered to be an incredible virtue. So the Buddhist approach is faith is absolutely necessary. Like we talked last week, if your heart isn't open, if you've got your mind full of delusions and negativity and criticism and kind of like being kind of very stubborn and proud, nothing can go in. Nothing can go into your mind at all. It'll stay frozen inside you. It'll stay intellectual, cold as ice. When there's no juice there, So what gives it the juice, what makes it real, makes it alive, is the faith part. So when we understand that faith is crucial, logical, and I'll explain in ordinary examples, but it's not just blind faith. It's based on logic. It's based on wisdom. And so the more you study, the more you then gradually, step by step, are doing the process of proving it to yourself, which is what study means. You don't just have faith in Bach. You hear his music, you're moved by it. That's easy. But you prove it to yourself. You prove it by learning it. So now then you get to know where Bach is coming from. But I mean, that's a bit different from, say, like something like acupuncture or medicine or any body of knowledge. You can have faith in your acupuncturist. No problem with that. No problem with that. You can, because the results come. But if you want to be of benefit to others, you need to prove it. You need to become an acupuncturist yourself, which is a process of proving it to yourself. Think of it. It's a process of proving it. So the more you study acupuncture, in the beginning, you check on your teacher. You check. You've heard about this teacher. You've done your due diligence. You hear they've got a good reputation. You see some good quality students all over the world. And you go, okay, I'm prepared to have confidence in this person based on your noggin, using your noggin. But then as you keep studying and you keep ticking the boxes, well, she did tell me this and I've proved it to be right. And you go to the next level. She told me this and I proved that to be right. Well, guess what? Your faith will increase. Your confidence in that person will increase, not just because they're looking cute to you, because everything they've told you so far, you tick the boxes and have proved it to yourself. I mean, we can all see that, I think, if we've been around even a year, not to mention 40 or 50 years, and you've heard about the Dalai Lama. Every time I see the Dalai Lama, every time I hear his teachings, since I first saw him, whatever it was, a few years ago, every time I see him again, every time I read his teachings, every time I hear about him, every time I hear the lamas talk about him, my confidence, my faith in him increases, because as I move slowly along my path, I'm ticking the boxes, basically proving that what he just said is in fact true. So then your faith increases. There's no question. So the faith we need is based on intelligence, not just blind. In other words, not just based on attachment. That's the problem in the West with teachers. People leap into Buddhism, fall in love with some teacher. Wow, he's so charismatic, he's so amazing. Wow, wow, wow. And then they have attachment and confuse attachment with devotion. And then because he starts looking, not looking at you nicely, or starts looking at another girl in a better way, then you start getting jealous and freak out, and then you want to sue him. I mean, I'm not joking. because your faith was based on attachment. So attachment will get disappointed. But if it's based on intelligence, I mean, then it's logical. And so faith is crucial. And as I said last week, it's so simple. Devotion is such a lovely word, you know. It's absolutely vital part of it. So this is where all these practices come in. And because these Tibetans have so much faith in the teachings, they have so much faith in the Dalai Lama, so much faith in their gurus. It's incredible. One of the key qualities of Tibetans generally who have been practicing, and all the geshis in the monasteries, and you see the difference. The geshis in the monasteries who practice, I'm not saying I can tell the difference, but those who have all the knowledge, but who really practice, work on their minds, and have faith in their gurus, and have faith in the Buddhas, they're the ones who are the yogis. You know, you read the biographies of any of the yogis, you know, they've got the scholarship, but they've got the faith. This is the one, you know. And that's why it's also so important for us to read biographies of these holy beings, right? I remember, you know, I might have mentioned a couple of times that 15 years ago, I started doing the biography of Geshe Lama Kontrog, Geshe Lama Kontrog. It was his kind of nickname in the monasteries, Lama Kontrog, the Lama refuge, something like that, because he was such an extraordinary being in the Serajay monastery. And he passed away in 2001, and I started doing his biography, interviewing his main attendant, who's now a Geshe himself, Geshe Tenzin Zopa. So for some reason, whatever reason, 15 years ago, he told me to stop. So I stopped, but now we're starting again. And it's just so moving. When every time in teachings and I read like a chapter from it about this person, you know, people are so moved because we need to have our hearts opened, you know. You can read all the teachings and squeeze your brain on emptiness, but you just read one small story about one yogi who's experiencing it. It's very, very encouraging, you know, so encouraging. So he was, and this is the way his main deity, his yidam, was Vajrayogini, you know, this gorgeous, naked, red lady. You take an empowerment into her in the highest yoga tantra level. You've got 4 levels of tantra. Tara, for example, green Tara, she's in the first level, and you can do those practices without having received an empowerment. But you've also got many other aspects of Tara, including one in the highest yoga tantra. So if you want to take your yidam as Tara, you would take the Tara Chitamani empowerment, and that's the highest yoga tantra version. Well, Vajrayogini is in that level of tantra. So you take, and that's his main yidam, you know. So there he is, this rough-looking monk. When he first came to Kopan, after more than 25 years up in the mountains, naked, no food, no sleep, no clothes, in a hole in the wall with 6 foot of snow in the winter. I mean, every time I walk out into my -2 degrees here just to put my rubbish out or to put out my water bowl water in the morning, and I try to imagine for more than 1 minute, trying to imagine sitting in that weather, then you realize how many more realizations you've got to get, you know. He lived naked, no clothes, no food, no sleep, in a hole in the wall with no possessions. That's it. His first was 5 years in one cave, nearly 6 years in one cave, his first one, which is called around where the Cave of the Doves is. Cave of the Doves is this place way up in the mountains where Milarepa meditated in the 11th century. And it's when he left Tibet. He had a dream that Milarepa told him where to go, you know. So he went up there and he spent the first 6 years in this cave, and then he was chucked out by the local shepherds, the local yak people, because they thought he was a yeti, because they didn't believe anybody could live up there looking naked. He looked so weird, you know, with his long hair, looking very rough. So they sort of chucked rocks at him. So he ran away, no wasting time, because these great yogis, these yogis, one of their key things is when you're really seriously meditating, not only you don't want to see anybody, but you also don't want to be seen by anybody. They literally, I mean, from the Western point of view, they're complete and total mad people. They lost the plot completely. But they're these greatest yogis. They need to be totally isolated in the most blessed places, and this is where Milarepa meditated. And what they're doing is, you know, they're doing all these incredible practices. And I think we're talking about this in the other teachings we're having for Thupten Nobu Ling about the path. Was it that? Who am I doing that with? Tantra. I forget. We're talking about Tantra. So the serious meditators, what they're trying to do is go through the 8 state, go in their meditation to the subtlest level of their mind, which is the most powerful level of mind, like the microscope of your mind. And these tantric yogic practices are particularly help enabling us to do that, where you can then meditate and literally remove all the obstacles, all the misconceptions from the mind. And some of the greatest yogis can even get enlightened, or if they can't do it then, they can do it when they die, So that's the best way to do that, is to completely disappear from the world. That's the most serious one, the most serious. Maybe I should read it to you and inspire you. I'll read the prologue, okay? I'll inspire you. Some of you might have heard it before. Tara's Vajrayana's sister. It's okay, all about the same thing. They're all these girls together, all right? All these wonderful girls. The girl practices are the best ones. They say they're really fast, really speedy. The quality of girls is quick and sharp and no nonsense. So there's Vajrayana, but there was Geshe Lama Kontrog when he came to Kopan after all these years, after Lama Yeshe passed away. And he came to Kopan. As Lama Zopa said, when Lama Yeshe passed away, all the smiles at Kopan went away. But when Lama Geshe Lama Kontrog came, all the smiles came back. And they thought he was an old country bumpkin. He's very tall. He'd lived for years naked, remember, with his face and his wrinkles must have been very rough, very weather-beaten. He looked like a grumpy old grandfather. But he was Vajrayana. So who can tell who anybody is? We cannot tell. So let me just get to this book and I'll read you this the prologue of this book. I have to find it. Hang on a second. I know where it is. Yes. That should come. We've done 2/3 of the biography. It should come out soon. Okay, here we go. I'll read you the prologue. The biography of a secret yogi. That's what it's temporarily called. If I don't run out of voice in the meanwhile. Okay. All right. So this is the preface or the prologue, or chapter 1. I'm not quite sure what it's called yet. Okay, here we go. Wait, coming, nearly ready. What's happened? Something's gone wrong here. Wait a minute. What's wrong with it? Format. Where's format? Tools. No. Format. This is very peculiar. View. Here we go. That's it. Okay. In the afternoon of an early spring day in 1965, the yak herder Pasang was climbing the mountains above his village, Burshi, not far from the border of Tibet in northwest Nepal. Pasang was looking for his yaks, which he had sent out to pasture that morning. The mountains facing the north are extremely dry, very little grass. Following their tracks, he could see that they'd gone further up than usual. He'd never been this far before. It was very rugged countryside and not easy to get to. Normally, yaks are quite haphazard in their eating habits. Left alone, they graze here and there, gradually moving on and up. They can go for miles in a day, eating their way into very dangerous situations. Many animals fall over the cliffs. Pasang crossed the waterfall and could see them a few hundred meters away, grazing up the mountainside. He needed to find the lead yak so that he could herd them down. There were 10 of them. Show, come, he shouted. Then he noticed just above the yaks a person. He wasn't sure even if it was a person, sitting in a hole in the rock face. He squinted his eyes and looked and took a careful look to make sure he wasn't imagining things. He didn't know what to think. The person appeared huge and he seemed to be naked. There were caves up there, and one of them, the Cave of the Doves, is famous for being the home 900 years earlier of the great Milarepa. But no one ever lived there now, not these days, Pasang thought to himself. Who knew who this was? He wondered if it was a yeti. In the mountains, there is a strong belief in the existence of these mythical beings, said to look a bit like a gorilla. Or it could even be a demon. I mean, if he's a man, he must be crazy. What's he doing up there on his own in the middle of nowhere? Pasang was alone. It was getting dark and the clouds were moving quickly across the sky, covering the top of the mountains. He was scared. He gathered his yaks and he got out of there. Back at Bushi, the villagers decided they had to get rid of this intruder. Whoever he was, they didn't feel good about him. They were genuinely fearful that he would bring harm to the village. The next day, Pasang led 2 of his friends up the mountains to check out this apparition, armed with their slingshots. "Up there, do you see him?" he said. They shot several rocks at the figure, hoping to scare him away. The next thing they see is this person carrying a small pack on his back, rushing out of the cave and almost flying up the mountain, hardly touching the ground as he went. They couldn't believe their eyes, but they were relieved. Now he was gone. 2 years later, a 4-hour walk west of the Cave of the Doves, the old monk Rinchen Wangchen was returning to his tiny house in Ganden Mountain, where he lived in meditation. He'd made the house from rocks years ago and spent the winters here, coming down from Mugompa, his monastery, 8 hours further up the mountain on the route to Tibet. Now that he was old, he wanted to spend all his time in this little hut in solitary retreat. He could have found a suitable place near his monastery. It's on one of the highest peaks and is one of the most isolated places in the region. But he knew that Ganden Mountain was blessed by the energy of the Buddhas, Vajrayana and Hayagriva. Hayagriva is a wrathful aspect of Chenrezig. And his consort is a wrathful aspect of Tara. And always the best place to meditate is a place that has been blessed by the presence of the holy beings. And of course, the great Milarepa had laid his holy feet on these mountains hundreds of years before. He had a close relationship with the people of Chokang Paro, one of the nearby villages where he was born. From his hut, he would visit his relatives for tsampa, his roasted barley flour, and other supplies, and of course, to perform prayers for them. He was happy in his retreat place, isolated from the village and in sight of no one. But in the spring of 1967, he found that he had a neighbor. It was late afternoon. He was returning from the village with supplies, but for some reason he took a different route, one he'd never used before. About 10 minutes from his hut, when he glanced over to the northeast, he noticed something moving among the rocks higher up. There seemed to be a person outside what looked like a cave. The mist was already falling, so it wasn't clear. For 2 years now, he'd heard rumors. There'd been rumors circulating around the village about a mysterious person, a madman perhaps, even a yeti, who'd been chased away from the Cave of the Doves by the villagers of Bushi. He was a bit anxious at first. He wasn't sure whether it was a person or indeed whether the fears of the villagers were based in reality. When you're in retreat, you want to be isolated, and he didn't know what to think about this new presence. Back at his hut, he couldn't get this stranger out of his mind. The very next morning, after his pre-dawn meditation session, he did some more investigating. He went to the spot from where he'd seen the movement. He watched up. He watched until the sun not only touched the cave, but was shining down on the village and the valley. But this time he didn't see any sign of life, nothing. He was reluctant to go there. It could be a yeti after all, although irrational, he just wasn't sure. By now, he was really curious. His mind was full of it all day. He couldn't even meditate well. Again, next morning he went to look. Again, nothing. This time he decided he'd go to the cave itself and find out. He made his way stealthily through the bushes, a 10-minute trek through the brush and up the mountains. He was to the left of the cave, but because of the rocks in his path, he couldn't see inside. He crept closer, but still kept to the side, throwing a stone onto the rocky outcrop that formed the roof. 4 times he threw stones, but nothing happened. Then he crept around to the front of the cave and he looked inside the doorway, a hole in the rock face. There was a man, almost naked, sitting unmoving in meditation. He seemed so powerful, huge, strong. Rinchen Wangchuk was amazed by his presence. Even though his hair was down his back and wild-looking, he could see that the meditator was a monk. He was wearing just a piece of his maroon robes covering his secret parts, with the rest of his body bare. His palms weren't in his lap in the usual meditation mudra, but open, each hand resting upwards on each knee, his thumbs curled inwards, resting in the palm. He had long, straggly whiskers hanging down either side of his mouth, but almost no hair on his upper lip or on his chin. His face was very rough, dark and weather-beaten. The cave was bare, nothing at all, just this meditator sitting on what seemed like a worn animal skin on the hard, rocky ground. Rinchen Wangchuk couldn't imagine how he could survive like this. And who was he? He decided this must be the person the Bushi villagers thought was a yeti, the person they'd chased away. He stood at the open door for a long time, just watching this amazing man meditate. But his mind was full of so many conflicting thoughts. Maybe he was crazy. How could someone live like this? And by the look of him, he could have been meditating for years. He, of course, knew all the stories about Milarepa, one of the most beloved and successful meditators of Tibetan history. Everyone knew them, how he'd left the world, gone to the mountains, moving from cave to cave, naked, living on nettles, and eventually gaining the supreme goal of enlightenment. His songs are known and loved by all Tibetans and their Nepalese Buddhist neighbors. Reading about this is one thing, but to see someone looking just like Milarepa would have looked, living in a bare cave for who knows how long, was something else. It was hard to believe. It seemed impossible. It was certainly the first time that Rinchen Wangchuk had witnessed such a person. Of course, he had received empowerments himself into the highest practices during his time in Tibet. But seeing someone actually embodying the practice in such a radical way, that was not within his experience. He was also beginning to feel a little embarrassed. I mean, if this man really was a great meditator, how rude to disturb him like this, throwing stones. He decided to return to his hut. But the image of this yogi overwhelmed him during his own meditation sessions. He couldn't think of anything else. He began to feel very good about him, very safe somehow. He was drawn to him and wanted to get his own sessions finished quickly so he could get back to the cave. On the fourth day, after his mid-morning session, he went back. Again, there was the yogi in meditation. Nothing had changed since yesterday. He was absolutely still, unmoving, like a rock. Rinchen Wangchuk couldn't contain himself. He was compelled to talk to him. From the doorway, he quietly said, "May I know who you are? May I offer you some food?" There was no reply, no acknowledgement, nothing. The meditator remained in samadhi. Rinchen Wangchuk was becoming convinced that he was a genuine practitioner and he was yearning to connect with him. He longed to receive teachings from this holy being. Again, he asked his questions, and again, but nothing. He watched him for a long time and then left. He cooked his lunch, did his afternoon session, thinking about the yogi who filled his mind. He returned to the cave. Now he sat on the ground just in front of the door of the cave with the afternoon sun at his back. He was but a few feet from the meditator who was sitting facing the doorway. His heart reached out to him. There was no sign of any food. He said very quietly, "You must eat food. I have food. May I offer you some?" No response. Clearly his efforts were getting him nowhere. Perhaps he was pushing too hard. Perhaps he'd better just leave him alone. But he couldn't let go of it. He had to meet this great man and receive his teachings. To receive personal instructions from someone who had direct experience of the practices was a rare and precious thing. He yearned for realizations himself and could not bear to turn away from this unbelievable opportunity. After a restless night, he returned to the cave as soon as he'd finished his pre-dawn session. But this time he brought an offering, something auspicious, his small wooden bowl piled high with barley grain and a lump of salt. The grains for growth, expansion, and the salt when offered to a lama for the wealth of Dharma. The meditator was there as usual, naked, in samadhi. Rinchen Wangchuk knelt before him. Holding his gift high, he extended it towards him. "Great yogi, may this offering create a spiritual relationship between us. May I know who you are. Where are you from?" This time, the meditator opened his eyes and spoke. "I am nobody. Leave me alone." His gaze was almost unbearable, powerful, piercing, steady. His voice was soft, but his words were firm. Rinchen Wangchuk's heart was beating so fast. He implored him, "I'm requesting you sincerely that you teach me the holy Dharma." "It's not possible," the yogi said. But nothing could stop Rinchen Wangchuk now. Whatever you demand of me, I am ready to follow. I will do exactly as you instruct. The yogi hadn't moved, his palms still resting upwards on his knees, his legs in full lotus position. After a long silence, he said, "What you're wanting is harder than you can imagine. But I'm ready, I promise. Please teach me. I've lived at Mugompa for 40 years. I've studied in Tibet. Now I yearn to practice seriously and gain realizations. I'm trying my best to stay in solitary retreat, but I feel that I lack the blessings of the realized gurus. I'm convinced you must be a great yogi. I beg you, please give me teachings." The yogi kept his gaze on the old monk bent low before him. For 7 years, he'd had no contact with human beings. To fulfill the goal of Buddhahood, his heartfelt wish, he needed this utter isolation. Once he'd accomplished it, he could effortlessly join the world again, now fully capable of benefiting others. If this monk was not serious, it would be a waste of time, a complete distraction. But he could see the mind of this old monk, his sincerity, his devotion. Perhaps the time was right. "If you follow me, you must stay in retreat for the rest of your life. If you can do that, I will give you the empowerments and the commentaries and guide you in your meditations." Rinchen Wangchuk was ecstatic, unbelievable, like finding a treasure. He had found a Lama, a true knowledge holder. At last, he could achieve the purpose of his life, the realizations of truth, just like all the holy beings of the past, right back to Lord Buddha himself. "But this must not go beyond us," the yogi said. "I have vowed to spend the rest of my life in solitary retreat, isolated from everyone. No one must know. I promise I will do exactly as you say." That's the prologue. Every time I read it, I'm very moved, okay? He's one of my lamas. In fact, the story goes on, I'll read you another chapter, the one I always love reading best. This is a very interesting story. I was interviewing Tenzin Zopa. It's so marvelous. Tenzin Zopa, he's now about 40. He's a young geshe. But I asked him because he was his attendant. He was his attendant until he died in 2001. And I said, when did you first meet Geshe-la? I said to Tenzin Zopa. He said, "Oh, when I came out of my mother's womb." So he told the story. So this is one of the first chapters. Later on it comes. The story goes, because Tenzin Zopa had, he lived in this village about several hours from this place, from Cave of the Doves. So later, after when Geshe-la Makonchuk was thrown out by the first Bushi people, he then went and meditated for about a year under some juniper trees, under the trees. He made himself a cave under the trees, 6 foot of snow in the winter, remember? So they chucked him out of there, and then this is his third cave. And it's at this cave, then after a couple of years after this, that the villagers start to meet him. And then he became their main Lama, So Tenzin Zopa was born to one of the local villages, and he was the first of 6 children. And from the time he could remember, he thought of Geshe-la as his grandfather. And he first met him when he came out of his womb. So the story goes, 2 of his aunties were both nuns, right? And they were there at the birth of their sister, who was the mother of Tenzin Zopa. So they were really worried because Tenzin Zopa tells the story that he was coming out the wrong way. This is how he told the story. He's coming out feet first or something, and there was big problems. The mother was having a struggle. So they called Geshe-la from his mountain, from his cave, and he came, and he came straight into the room, and he told one of the nuns to get some butter. So she got some butter, and he had the butter in his hand, and he blew on it and blessed it with mantras, and then he gave it to the mother to eat. And Tenzin Zopa said, "She ate the butter, and then apparently I went back into the womb, and I turned around, and I came out head first, and the butter was on my crown." He said it straightforwardly. So the story is a bit, if you're cynical, this book will make you vomit, But if you've got faith in these holy beings, the butter was on my crown. That's when he first met him, he said. And then he used to go up to the caves and spend time with him, And that's part of the story. But this part of the story is very interesting. When I was interviewing Tenzin Zopa at Kopan Monastery, all about these stories about, who to interview and getting, because these Tibetans, they're they've got very good when they become geshis about details. When it comes to describing time and place, they've got no sense of detail. So half my job was to get out of Tenzin Zopa what, southeast, which tree, where, how many miles, because it was all just kind of, and he was always convinced, for example, that Geshe-la meditated for 25 years in his first cave. So I did the timeline, and I tried to tell Tenzin Zopa, I said, if it was 25 years in the first cave and then another 10 in this one, I said he must have been born at about 1890. And it wouldn't be possible. And it was still so hard for him to believe it was only 6.5 years. He was so disappointed. So half my job has been to kind of get it all on the earth, get facts and figures and details to make it interesting. So anyway, the auntie, it was at Kopan, and the new reincarnation had already been recognized. No, wait a minute, that's not true. Yes, it's true. That's right. Geshe-la died in 2001, and I started this in about 2004 or something. 5 after the new reincarnation was there, and he was a Kopan, little boy, right? And so the auntie came down from the mountains, this nun auntie, to look after him. So generally these Tibetans are pretty sexist, and if you're fat and old and female, you're called auntie. The general term is Annie, which means auntie. So if you're a girl, you're called auntie. Even the nuns are called auntie, basically. That's just typical Tibetan men. Never mind. I've been a Tibetan man in the past. That's probably why I'm a girl in this life. Don't worry about it. So anyway, the auntie was there, and she was one of the people who was around and knew Geshe-la Kontrog. So I said to Tenzin Zopa, should I interview her? And he said, no, she doesn't know anything. So I did interview her. And one of the most powerful stories in the book is from her, right? It's unbelievably moving. So I'll read you that chapter now. I love this one. This is my favorite. When she first went, yeah, so I'll just get into that one. Because they're so humble, these people. She had all these experiences, but nobody asked her a question, so she shut her mouth. We just go, we'll blurt out anything we ever feel, but they don't talk until they're asked. So, but he said, oh, she doesn't know anything. But in fact, her story is one of the most moving in the book, I tell you. I have to find it. Capturing the hearts of Sum. Sum is this area way up there, totally isolated. People go up there occasionally now. Okay. Okay, here we go. Meeting the villagers. So her name was Auntie Chödrön. She'd become a nun when she was like 12, and then she had to, oh, here we go. So just a bit of background. My great uncle, this is Tenzin Zopa talking, Rinchen Wangchuk, that's the one we just talked about. When he was 60, in keeping with tradition, he was given permission to go off on his own into retreat. He had already built his meditation hut when he used to go there for the winter. And in 1967, he decided to stay there full time. So according to tradition, every family would offer at least one of their sons and daughters to the monasteries. My Auntie Chödrön became a nun when she was 9. First, she lives at Ranchen Gompa, the nuns were up there. And then for 3 years, she had served her old uncle Pasang when he lived in retreat as well. So, but when her mother died, when Chödrön was 13, she was forced to go back home to work for the family. I was stuck for another 12 years, she laughs. But Auntie Chödrön recalls the event that led to her freedom. It was the late summer of 1968. She was 23. Rinchen Wangchuk, the monk, had invited 6 of the Mugompa monks and 4 of the Rachen nuns to do prayers at our house. Tenzin Zopa was talking. This was before I was born. Perhaps besides Rinchen Wangchuk and her, there were the monks. She mentions their names. So there they were, sitting around the prayer room afterwards, drinking tea. They did a special Tara practice, which took all day. So they were sitting around the prayer room afterwards drinking tea when Rinchen Wangchuk told them he had something important to say. The reason I asked you to gather here today is to announce that I have met a highly realized yogi up near Ganden Gompa. I've been receiving teachings from him for more than a year now. He said that in the beginning, he had observed him closely and eventually gained great faith in this yogi. He is truly realized, truly qualified. I tell you, we have never met such a highly realized being in all our lives. He is incredible. Auntie Chödrön was so excited. I felt so honored to think that a holy being would be living so close to us. Rinchen Wangchuk told them that this yogi was Tibetan. He'd studied at Sera, one of the three greats in Lhasa, as the Gelug. This is what they call the three main Gelugpa monasteries: Ganden, Drepung, and Sera, the three greats. And he came and then after his escape in 1959, he came to the Cave of the Doves and meditated in isolation. And he lived there without clothes, without food, without sleep. Can you believe it? Just like Milarepa. Children and the others were amazed. They knew about Milarepa, but to hear about someone living like that in their own time was hard to imagine. It seems to be, Rinchen Wangchuk said, that the so-called Yeti, he's the so-called Yeti we all heard about. Here's the one the Bushi villagers threw out. He'd been there for nearly 6 years. He said that he'd moved to some juniper trees after that, where he stayed for another year. They chased him away from there too, and he found his way to Ganden Mountain early in 1966. I met him a year after that. He's been to many holy places in Tibet and India, yet he came here to caves near our village on the instructions of his guru, Trijang Rinpoche, the junior tutor of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And that's also the root guru of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa. Rinchen Wangchuk told them that he himself had received many teachings and empowerments from this yogi, and that he had a profound effect on his practice. He has given me Vajrayogini empowerment and an extensive commentary on the practice over several months. All his teachings are experiential. Just hearing his words, your heart is moved. He is such a holy being. He made me vow to tell no one, but I feel you must meet him. You must receive teachings and empowerments from him. I chose all of you. You are the right people. You are ready for him. Auntie Chodron was deeply moved by Rinchen Wangchuk's words, and she felt so honored. She could not believe her good fortune. She'd been sincerely practicing since she was a young girl. She had sacrificed her life as a nun to her family, and now this amazing opportunity. If you feel you are ready, we can go to see him tomorrow, and I will confess to him that I revealed this secret. But you must keep silent about this, he warned them. They were so excited. How fortunate we are. Such good karma we must have. Even though our village is so remote with few lamas, this yogi has come here. Thank you, Rinchen Wangchuk. We are so honored. They all agreed they wanted to go to see the lama the next day. There was no time to waste. Good, Rinchen Wangchuk said. Each of you can bring a handful of offerings, whatever you want to give, to create auspiciousness. Next morning, Auntie Chodron and the others woke up before dawn. Most of the group had stayed over at the house, all squeezed together into the prayer room. Rinchen Wangchuk instructed everyone to make very rich butter tea and to bring it in their flasks to offer to the yogi. Auntie Chodron also brought some butter that she had carefully wrapped the special porcelain cup used for lamas. She brought salt, others brought grain, and one had a woolen carpet. They all had katas, offering scarves. They walked up the mountain together, the 11 of them, Rinchen Wangchuk and Pasang Sering leading the way. They were silent but excited, full of anticipation. They arrived exactly as the sun was reaching the cave, which was their plan. They felt this was very auspicious. The yogi must have known they were coming. When they arrived, he was standing in front of the cave, waiting. I was so nervous I was shaking, Auntie Chodron said, and I was shocked at what I saw. He was huge, far bigger than any of us, she said. His clothes were filthy, black almost, and they were rags. I could tell they were monk's robes, but it was just bits and pieces of robe. He wasn't wearing a monk's shirt, just a bit of cloth wrapped around his shoulders. His hair was down his back, thick and matted, sticking out wildly. His face was very wrinkled and rough. She said he looked worse than the poorest beggar she had ever seen. She could not believe that this was a holy being. He stood there, his presence so powerful, so calm and deep, saying nothing. All the lamas she had met before seemed so clean and poised. They would smile nicely to greet you and say sweet words. This man just stood there, fierce, staring at them. Auntie Chodron didn't know what to think. But he had captured her, she said. I knew I couldn't escape from this person. He had me, but I honestly did not know whether I could cope. Rinchen Wangchuk introduced them. They are from Mugompa and Ratchen Gompa. They would like to request empowerments and teachings from you, great yogi, especially Vajrayogini. I decided I had to tell them about you. They all want the teachings so badly. They are ready. They are sincere. We were all bent low, looking down, too scared to meet his face, Auntie Chödrön said. Since you have a monastery, why'd you come here? He said. He was so blunt, so direct. None of them said anything. Luckily, Rinchen Wangchuk spoke for them. They sincerely want to follow you exactly as I've done, and they have promised that the word will not get out. Auntie Chödrön said that he stood there silent, it seemed for ages. Then he spoke, strongly, clearly. If you dedicate your entire life to practice without breaking your commitments for even one day, I will accept your request. My heart was beating fast. I was so happy, Auntie Chödrön said. Have you all received a highest yoga tantra empowerment? If you haven't, I can't give you Vajrayogini. Yes, Rinchen Wangchuk said, they've all received empowerments. They are qualified. The yogi invited them to sit down. They prostrated 3 times, each making their offerings, and then sat down on the ground, squashed together in the small space in front of the cave. Auntie Chödrön unwrapped the porcelain cup and held it for each person to pour some tea into it from their flasks, and then offered it to the yogi. He led the blessing, chanting the nectar offering prayer to Vajrayogini. He sat there, serious, drinking his tea, but very sweet, humble, and very relaxed, Auntie Chödrön said. By now, we were relaxed a bit too. Rinchen Wangchuk requested the yogi to allow everyone to take a taste of his tea for a blessing. He allowed them. Anyway, we have created a very auspicious connection. We dedicate this for liberation in this one lifetime, he said. They drank their hot butter tea in silence. Now you can go, the yogi said. I will let Rinchen Wangchuk know when the empowerment will be. One of the nuns, young Don, was especially delighted. She knew the yogi. She didn't say a word at the cave, but told the others on the way down. He had come to her family's house years ago when she was a young girl. It must have been the middle of 1959, the year Tibetans had escaped from their country. Of course, he looked very different then, but he was unmistakable, she said. I was carrying water back from Lungbu, and I noticed this big monk walking towards my house. He came to the front door and called out, "Hey, anyone there?" My mother invited him in and offered him tumpa. He asked her if he could keep his things at her house. I've only got some texts, nothing for you to worry about, he told her. There was a fatherly feeling about him. I thought how nice it would be to have him stay with us. I could just spend time with him, but he left. My mother really took care of that bag of his, which she kept in our prayer room. A couple of months later, she said, she was again returning from Lungbu with water when some kids called out to her, "There's a big Tibetan monk in your house." I knew it was him and I was so happy. I ran all the way back home. Amma, is it the big Tibetan monk? It was, but he'd taken his things and gone. I had such a feeling of loss. I ran in the direction that I'd seen him coming from earlier to try to find him. She looked towards the route to Tibet, but couldn't see him. He'd gone. They started their retreat a week later, on the 25th of the 11th Tibetan month, a special Vajrayogini day. Rinchen Wangchuk and Pasang Tsering had brought the various ritual implements and prepared the cave. The yogi looked just the same. He sat on a throne made of grass piled a foot high. The rest of them sat on scattered grass to soften the hardness of the rock. I've done the self-initiation, so now we can begin, he announced. The empowerment took 3 days. They all stayed at the nomad huts, a 15-minute walk away. First, he recited the preliminary practices, stopping and giving instructions each step of the way. The moment he started to teach, his words hit our hearts, Auntie Chödrön said. I was in tears. I had received Vajrayogini from other lamas, but the difference was like heaven and earth. He gave the commentary on the practice every day until the 10th of the 12th month, 15 days later. We had 2 sessions of commentary every day, the first just after sunrise for 3 hours, then after lunch another session, another 3 hours. Sometimes they would sit around the cave together doing the practice. The yogi had to do his usual 4 sessions of meditation every day, as well as teach us, she said. He seemed to be doing many different practices together. I could tell from the recitations that he was doing the Nyungne fasting practice as well. He would recite all the major practices, Guyu Samaja, Yamantaka, Haruka Chakra Samvara, as well as Vajrayana, Auntie Churjan said. We could hear his powerful and beautiful chanting, but if he noticed that we were listening, he would chant quietly. He was so humble. Auntie Churjan said that this was the most special time of her life. The 11 of us, whenever we would see each other in the coming years, the first word out of our mouths was always to recall those incredible 2 weeks with our precious Lama. Without doubt, for every one of us, it was the most memorable, most meaningful, the happiest days of our lives. They all felt unbelievably proud and privileged, so special. Until the end of their lives, they always expressed this. The monks, when they passed away, children said, they all died with very auspicious signs. They all kept their practice purely. They completed their great retreat for 3 years. They lived a life strictly following the Lama's advice. They died with confidence in their practice. Everyone in the village praised them. For all of them, she said, this yogi, their Genla, their teacher, their Lama, became their main guru, their heart Lama, just naturally. You couldn't compare him with anyone else. His way of teaching was unbelievable. After he passed away, she then did retreat up there, 2-3-year Vajrayana retreat in his cave. But Tenzin Zoba says she doesn't know anything. I always tell him this. He's always embarrassed. Anyway, I shouldn't be negative. So just to read those again, okay? So then Vajrayana, Tara, whoever it is we like, you know. We've got to find our Yidam, find our deity, and then find our Lama. And then the key job, like with him, you know, the Lama is the Guru is the Lama. The Lama is the Buddha is the Lama. Pabonka says if the Lama is not the Buddha, then who is, you know? This, like I said the week before, I forgot now, but that's hard to understand. So I want to explain again. I'm going to have to blow my nose again, as usual. I'm so sorry. Hang on. So the way I like to think about it, like I think I mentioned this Sambhogakaya, this subtle light body form of the Buddha, you know, which, as I said, only the Arya bodhisattvas can see. So these are all these depictions of these different Buddhas in these different shapes and sizes, holding different things, this visual language, basically, you know. Each of these Buddhas, all divided up into these 5 Buddha families, all related to different states of mind, are methods to help us. All the methods are the same. They help you become Buddha, but depending on your personality, it's very very personal. We can see in our lives, isn't it, that we call different shapes and sizes, aren't we? Now, if we understand Buddhist model of the mind, this is so important. In the middle scope of the Lam Rim, when you study the Four Noble Truths, you learn the Buddhist model of the mind. You have to study it. You have to learn it. Because Buddha's view of the mind is so precise, it's so unique, it's so distinct. As we know, he describes all the contents of our mental consciousness into the 3 categories. The 2 main ones are the neurotic, deluded, ridiculous, I-based, fear-based ones that are nonsense, that we can get rid of, that are the source of our suffering. And then you've got the virtues, the positive ones, the clear ones, the appropriate ones, the valid ones. This is a very, very, very precise view in Buddhism. This is not Western psychology. This is not our neuroscience. So the job of being a Buddhist is to distinguish between them. So the tantric approach is much more sophisticated, which enables us to utilize all of these parts of our mind. That's the skill for a person who's got renunciation, who's realized emptiness, and who's realized bodhicitta. Then they're able to totally utilize the poison and turn it into medicine. That's the exact analogy, you know. So all these Buddhas So the model of the mind in Buddhism doesn't just refer to humans. This refers to all the realms of existence, the hell beings, the spirits, the animals, the humans, the gods, the anti-gods, the form beings and the formless beings. There's no one left. The entire universe is covered. This is a model of the mind, refers to all living beings. It's completely fits with the law of karma. It's a holistic, it's a whole integrated view of the universe. It's not evident to us when we first think about it. So Tantra is the most sophisticated level that takes all these states of mind and these different Buddhas, each of these different Buddhas is a manifestation, some of love, some of compassion, some peaceful, some wrathful, some are manifestations of purified anger, some are manifestations of purified attachment, like Vajrayana. They're all different qualities of mind, and we need these. This is the most marvelous level of psychology. We need these practices in order to become a Buddha. So different lives, we have different aspects. Some in a while, maybe one life you're born, you got, I mean, we're all got the same states of mind, but some have more than others of this one. The psychopaths have a lot more anger, a lot more really heavy ignorance, a lot more really heavy attachment, a lot of it due to past karma of wanting to torture or kill, got the karmic imprints, but we're all variations of the same states of mind, So these Buddhas are manifestations of all these different states of mind. So each life we have a different shape and size. Maybe this life, you're female, you're quiet, you're small, you have a predominance of patience, not much anger, but your deity might be Yamantaka, this super powerful, wrathful dude who, if you saw in human form, would scare the life out of you. That might be your main deity. Geshe-Lama Khonsrog, a tall, rough, no nonsense, very masculine looking person. His deity, he was Vajrayogini. Lama Zopa said he lived in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. You could never tell. He looked like a country bumpkin to everybody. They told me when he first came to Kopan, So we need to know the deity that is suiting us, and we'll learn that slowly. And one of the key ways to learn it is to know your main delusion. If your main delusion is pride, maybe one of the heavy duty deities is your Yudam. Male or female, it makes no difference. We've all got these different qualities. So it's a very marvelous psychology. Don't just think of it as iconography, which is how we see it in the West. We all love Tibetan iconography, but it's just real psychology. So, okay, so let's again think of this Tara, for example, in this subtle green light body. And you see a picture, the statue. And one of the commonest questions we ask in the West, who was she? When did she live? Who is she? We think of her as a photograph of somebody. This is a very important point. We think of her as a photo of somebody who lived. So we see Shakyamuni Buddha, and we know it's the Indian gentleman who lived in India 2,500 years ago, So we think, Tara, when did she live? So there's all these nice stories about how she was born out of the tear of Chenrezig and this kind of thing, or how she promised she'd always become a Buddha in a female form. These stories. But for me, they're not really the point. The point of what Tara, I said this before, and I'll say it again. Maybe it wasn't clear to you, and I want you to ask questions if it's not clear. So when you see a picture of Tara, when you see a picture of Shakyamuni, we know he's the prince who lived 2,500 years ago. When we see a picture of Tara, we think, well, when did she live? When did she live? It's not the way to say it. It's like this. I said this before, but it's like this. She's a generic image. She's like an archetype. She's like a picture. You've decided, you've heard about the qualities of power, let's say the quality of a Buddha. No, but let's use Vajrayana. Same thing. She's as gorgeous. She's naked. She's red. She's completely starkers, as we say in Australia. She's naked, totally divine, and she's kind of semi-wrathful. She's standing up. She's holding this and holding that, and she's pretty fierce, and she's holding a skull of blood or whatever. So it's this visual language, and she's a manifestation of purified desire energy, purified attachment. So now if you think of that, so don't look at the picture, and you think of that quality in a mind, then that's so some clever person draws a picture of that quality, and it will turn out to be Vajrayana. So it's like a generic image. So like I said before, it's just like you've heard of tennis. You've heard of tennis. And somebody who's a brilliant tennis player will know exactly what a perfect tennis player would look like. They know exactly what a perfect tennis player would look like. So they do a drawing of a perfect tennis player. There's no face of anybody on it, but it's exactly the right shape. If it's a girl one, it'll be Serena, with really strong, big thighs, whatever the shape is. And you go, there's a generic image. There's a perfect image of a perfect tennis player. but it's not a person. It's just an image showing you the qualities of a perfect tennis player. So now you've got to go search for your example of that one, and that's your human teacher. So that's the Sambhogakaya. Tara is the picture of these qualities. Vajrayana is that picture. So you've got to find a human being whose face you put on that picture, and that's your guru. So if the guru isn't that picture, then who the hell is? So you see the guru, the one you have chosen to be your Vajrayogini. In Auntie Chodra's case, she saw him as Vajrayogini. Now, of course, he's also everybody else. So another one of his disciples might have Tara as her practice. So she will see Geshe-Lama Konchog as Tara, because all the Buddhas can do anyone. They're like in a play, they can manifest in any shape you like. That, you know, your Lama can be Yamataka for one person and can be sweet Chenrezig for another. So that's exactly how it is. Like Lama Yeshe is my Lama, one of my Lamas, Lama Yeshe. And then also my friend John, that's his Lama too. But John never saw any aspect of Lama except sweet, patient Chenrezig. Whenever I saw Lama, he scared the life out of me. I thought he was about 6 foot tall. He's like just bigger than me. Every time I saw Lama, I mean, I loved Lama. I couldn't wait to be with him, but he was scared the life out of me. He was wrathful. He was fierce. He'd kind of whack me, you know, because that was maybe Yamataka, whoever I needed. He was who I needed. Then he was who John needed. That's the skill of a guru. They've got all the qualities internal. They can play all the roles in the play, you know. Now I've got my glasses on so I can see you all. I can't see a thing. Are we communicating, folks? Now I think it's time for you people to ask questions.
Yes.
About anything that I've said or haven't said. It's up to you. Go.
Any questions? But
Yeah.
may I say one thing? That Venerable Robina, this class is scheduled for 1 hour.
Oh, we're finished. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I forgot.
No, you probably.
It's our last class, isn't it?
No, we have one more.
Oh, we do. Okay, I'm so sorry about that as well. I forgot. I'm losing track.
No, not at all. We love to listen.
Okay, well, then, let me just have some questions and then we'll finish. Okay.
Okay.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
No worries. So, any questions? Please type in chat or raise your hand. Unmute yourself.
Or we can wait till next week, as you wish. Dana. No, who is it? Who had their hand up?
I can't see.
Alessia, sweetheart. Yes, Alessia.
Please unmute.
Thank you very much, Venerable.
Yes.
Earlier, when you were reading from Geshe-Lama Konchog biography, you said at some point, all his teachings are experiential.
Yes.
And I have a difficulty in understanding this particular aspect of the teaching. What does it mean?
I'll tell you. Very
exactly
simple.
experiential? Thank you.
I'll tell you. There's 2 ways of teaching. One is you get a text and you comment on the text. It's very clean, it's very correct, it's very appropriate, and it's commenting on the text. So of course, if it's a yogi doing it, you can't say it's not experiential. But an experiential teaching is how Lama Yeshe only ever taught. He taught spontaneously. He might be given a text, but he'd just go blah, blah. Lama Zopa teaches the same way, only ever experientially. They don't take the text and go one line at a time and then and they're very theoretical like you do if you're studying the Geshe. So when I studied Geshe program with Geshe Tekchok, my philosophy teacher, he's also a yogi, there's no question. And of course it's experiential, but he taught very precisely according to the text. He gave exact, clear commentary, and we absolutely need that. But then when you have an experiential teaching, the Lama will just talk from their heart. You know, that's, I would say, is the difference. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right.
And Andrea also has her hand up. Andrea, please go ahead.
Okay. But one more point to say, His Holiness is amazing. Always he would be, when he gives teachings in Dharamsala, for example, and there's 1,000, you know, all the 1,000 monks are there and all the local and the study and all the Westerners and the foreigners and the Chinese people. Over the years, he's really changed the way he teaches now. Typically, the gurus would never be personal. They would be experiential, but they would never say I. They'd always say the yogi's this and the yogi's that. They would never bring themselves into it. This was considered like incredible arrogance. They would never do this, ever, ever, ever. But His Holiness over the years has seen that this just doesn't work for us people in the West. I always remember one example, so moving. He was giving it, His Holiness was giving a teaching. Lama Zopa quotes this in his book about death, and I've heard it before. He was giving a teaching in Wisconsin where they'd done a Kala Chakra initiation. His brother, I think, had run that, whatever, I can't remember, there's a university there. And Geshe Sopa taught there for years and years. It was sent there by His Holiness. And His Holiness was teaching there. And as always, these lamas would always say, but of course, I'm not a yogi. I don't know anything. They always talk this way. We find that very puzzling in our culture. We almost think it's false humility, you know, we just don't get it. But it is their genuine humility. I mean, whenever Lama Zopa talks, when he has to bring himself as an example, it's always kind of, it's really embarrassing, you know. They'd always say they don't know. They'd never be personal, ever. So His Holiness one time, it backfired on him. This guy was in tears and he said, well, Your Holiness, if you don't know anything, what chance do we have? So this was really moving, you know. So His Holiness then backtracked a bit, and he said he did know a few things after all. So now you see, and even at that time, he even said, he told people that the first time he went to India in 1956 to celebrate the 2500th anniversary of the Buddha, he said he had a memory of being in the back of a big crowd of people at the teachings of the Buddha. He remembered. So it's trying to encourage us. And so now you really see with His Holiness, he always brings himself into it. Well, I have a realization of this and I thought this. This is completely not how Tibetans do it, but he's doing it for modern people's sake. He's so kind, you know. It's unbelievable. It's so moving when you hear it. It just sounds normal to us if we didn't have any context. But he said, when I was 15, maybe I realized that. And then I did this and I thought that. And when I was about 17, I realized that. It's never talked this way. It's incredibly empowering for us to hear it this way. That's what we need to hear. So he teaches according to modern people. It's very moving, you know. So in a way, he's teaching a text, but he's also being experiential, which is really both. But the experiential means there's no particular text. The real point, Alessia, is there's no text. You know, everything is usually by a text. You quote on the text. You always give a text and they go line by line. Experiential means you just go blah, blah. Or anything that arises in your mind, you know, that's experiential when the lamas do that. Do you see my point, Alessia?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Good. So please, next question.
Okay, so my question is about the medicine Buddhas, because I was also reading about the medicine Buddhas, and that they took a vows. There are 7 medicine Buddhas, and that as they were bodhisattvas, and I also always imagined that they were kind of living being, people to one many millions of years ago.
Okay.
And is it okay to think that?
Well, see, I get your point, Andrea. And the way I just said it before, I'm not trying to be heretical or anything. It has to be the way I said it, because you see, the point is this. It's so peculiar how they talk this way, because the point is millions of Buddhas have become Buddha as the medicine Buddha. Millions of people. So millions of people have become Buddha as Tara. So then who is Tara? But every single person who has ever practiced Tara and become Tara. You can't just say there's one person who was Tara and since then we become like her. It's not like it was Jesus or something. So they always talk like that in the teachings. And I get a bit puzzled, but it's sort of still like that. Anybody who is the medicine Buddha, that is their promise. So that's the time where, I mean, when you talk about the sutras and medicine Buddha thousands of years ago, so they have to be at the time, of course, they've been Buddhas since beginningless time. So it's got to be also like that. So it's not a contradiction. But to try and track back, like you could, the history of Shakyamuni, in the same way you track Shakyamuni to the human being who lived, I don't think you can do that with a medicine Buddha. I don't think you can do that with Tara. I'm just not sure. But this is how they, or it's just the tradition, how they talk. So it's interesting to look into it further. I can't say more, Andrea.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, someone else. Anything else? We can just finish.
Any questions? Yes, Laura has her hand.
Good, darling.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I know nothing about Tantra, no initiations, absolutely nothing at all. So my question is that I seem to experience, not so much now, but in the past, a connection more with some deity than with others. And there was a time when Tara was just like, I cannot connect with Tara. Absolutely, no, I can't go there. Is this normal? Is this sort of something, I don't know, that happens normally? Or
I understand, Laura. So first of all, we have to take the view of karma, which is that whatever arises in our mind is coming from seeds we planted before. It can't come out of nowhere. So the fact that you're even coming to a Tibetan Buddhist teaching, and the fact that you've listened to Buddhist teachings, and the fact you've read the teachings and you've heard the names of Buddhas. So obviously, if you listen to Tara, you feel no connection, but you hear another one and you like them. It's perfectly normal. But of course, you've got to be rational about it and decide if you want to be a Buddhist, you want to continue to practice, and one day you'll take an empowerment. Then you get past that. You can have a connection with some and not another, but you don't start getting attached to the idea and think, oh, I don't like Tara, but I do like Chenrezig. You start to see it rationally and properly and realize all the Buddhas are all valid, but it's obviously indicating some connection you've got from the past. This is the only logical explanation. Then you look at your mind and you work with it. And, do you aspire to take an empowerment one day?
Definitely, yes.
Good.
Very much so, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, sweetheart. What else, people? We can finish then, go home. Have our questions for next week. Yeah? Should we do that?
I do have a
What?
question for this week. This is Nina.
Oh, yes. Good.
I wanted to ask you offline, but I think because I think maybe it's a good thing to ask online. I wanted to request whether you would allow us to recite from now on your long love prayer after the teachings. Hopefully it will be auspicious for you to recover from your sickness and also to create conditions for you to live long and teach us for a very long time, because we seem to be in dire need of it.
So let's do it then. And then I will think about, I will listen to it and I will do my best, and then okay, go. Why not? We can merit together.
Thank you very much, Venerable.
Maybe okay, I think if you're going to do something like this, it's really good as a prayer, but you all do unmute yourselves and just all do it together. It's auspicious. Not because it's me, just because it's auspicious together.
Wonderful, let's do it.
Yeah, so you can all hear each other. It's good. It feels like group,
So if everybody could unmute.
You don't have to recite it. It's only if you feel like it. Don't feel like you're forced to recite it. You've got to choose you got to choose what you do.
A prayer for the long life of Venerable Robina, who is fully dedicated to
compassion, devoted to Christ, Adonai, male teacher of everything, all sentient beings, the reign of nectar extinction, reign of nectar extinguishing the conflagrations of delusions. Mother of the victorious ones of the ten dimensions, Dharmakaya, the great wisdom, perfect Aryabhara, ordinary force, the great teachers, great beings, fulfill the life stable of Mighty One, your whole the enemies one, you who discourse the scriptures and realization,
by eliminating your restoration, your wishes, lifetimes may I may all vital points even 1 second of my
never despise of every 1 second the Guru. May all the vital points of my praise be fulfilled. Of my prayers be fulfilled.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Much love.
Thank you.
We all find our gurus and our Tara and our Yidam and become it as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible. Say, this is where you open your heart. Just make aspirations. The prayer is an aspiration. May I become Buddha? May I find my Yidam? May I recognize my guru? May I meet Tara? It's a wonderful opening of the heart. It's may. You're not telling someone to do it. You're making the aspiration. It's very wonderful. So just keep making aspirations and never give up, okay? Never give up, never give up, never give up. You precious ones, all of you, everybody, and thank you. Much love. I'll see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robina.